So really it's for the moms like me who want to be the best mom, the best wife, and really integrate and flow with that, pursue their passion, a business, whatever that is for them, pursue something else that really fills their soul.
Welcome to the Juggling the Chaos of Recovery podcast Wellness Spot, where we focus on health and wellness and how you can reclaim your health and life today. You're in the right place if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you've been helping so many others. It's time to help yourself. In a time when health and wellness can be so confusing, I'll share my knowledge as a nurse and 20 years in wellness and help you navigate through. You will hear stories of people who have used the Shaklee products, including me, as they have truly been a game changer for health. And I'm here to tell you that it's never too late to pay attention to your health and how making a smart plan with natural choices can help you live your best life today. Well, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am your host, Moira Gorski. Sorry, with an itchy nose before I sneeze. I'm so glad that you are coming back and joining me today. If you've listened for a little bit or for a while, you know that I love connecting with people. And I love to just listen to the universe, if you will, when people say, hey, you should meet this person, or I run into somebody and I find them interesting and things like that. So today, I'm bringing you one of my friends who I've connected with, one of my new friends, because one of my friends said that I should meet her. So Sarah Dalton is a new friend, and she's a close neighbor of mine. And we have met in the park close to where I live and gotten to know each other and just connected just right away. Love it. So Sarah, welcome today. And I can't wait to get started having a little conversation with you.
Yes. Hello. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to chat with you. And yeah, it's always fun to talk with you because it flows so easily. So I'm excited to share it with other people.
Absolutely. And I'm excited to get out for another walk, now that almost all our snow is gone and the sun is shining, it's going to be a lot nicer than the first time we met when we were, oh my gosh, bundled up with our boots and everything. Totally. We're going to meet, it doesn't matter. Ice. Right. Exactly. Right. Yes. So Sarah Dalton is an entrepreneur like I am, a mom like I am, a dog lover like I am, and has a story of disordered eating like I do. And so we want to start there. Again, I love what we're going to share today, but let's start with the story of disordered eating and, what you want to share, what you feel comfortable, and kind of how that brought you along your journey of life.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity to share my story and this part of it, because I haven't ever publicly shared it. I've alluded to it, I've shared bits and pieces, because it, of course, as you know, it does shape, who I am today. So I'm a little nervous, to be honest, to put it out there, but I also feel like it's time, and if literally I can just encourage or help one person, then it's worth it. So
yeah. And yes, thank you for being brave and courageous. I know you told me that really nobody knows. And I have another friend who said the same thing when I ran into her and talked about my podcast. She goes, oh, I do. And I said, well, come on. And she goes, yeah, nobody knows. So,
right.
But it's good. It's right. And that's, again, a big reason why I started the podcast. If one person could be helped by the stories that I share. And I got to tell you before I let you go, somebody reached out to me last night after I had a conversation with her early in the week and said, by the way, I just learned that my daughter was diagnosed, 3 or 4 weeks ago with an eating disorder. Wow. And I feel like I'm drowning. So it is so prevalent. And so I think we need to share our stories without any shame, just knowing that maybe that story could help someone else.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it so much what you're doing. So for me, really, as I was kind of, preparing for this and looking back, because it is, now I'm removed from it enough to where, I can reflect on it. And I was kind of putting the timeline together, and it definitely started in high school for me. the really paying attention to my body. And I mean, definitely, a little bit in middle school, but kind of more of that normal, the feelings and the struggle with food and my body. But it really got to a point in high school where I was actually, really starting to like restrict and what I was eating and doing all the diets. It really did start, quote unquote, innocently enough with just trying out the diets. And it was, whatever, I won't even name, like it was all the diets. And it was coinciding with a time in high school. I think this is where the more I was thinking back to it of like what was going on and why, I just think I really didn't know who I was. And I had grown up in a church where it was, that was pretty much my life. And so that's a whole other conversation, but I do think, that it relates obviously because it affected me. And I feel like a lot of high school for me was just feeling lost and feeling like I was going down a path that wasn't true to me. I didn't have the words to put that, the words to say that at that point, but that's what was happening. So I think the focusing on food and my body was truly my attempt at controlling something and feeling like I had control over who I was and who I was becoming. So I think, and it really, for me, what it looked like I said, it was the restricting, but then of course, that when that pendulum swings, when you restrict, then it was the binging and that truly. So really in high school, it was more trying to diet and like going up and down, fluctuating. And it really did become, by the end of high school, it became my whole world. Like what the number on the scale said, I wasn't engaging with my friends. Like I felt like, and nobody that's the thing. I don't know that it was super obvious. I definitely kind of went into where at first in the first half of high school, I was like outgoing and, kind of out there and fun and adventurous. And I feel like by the time I graduated, I was just kind of a shell. Like I was very, introverted in that way. So I could tell. But I think then college was just, it amplified the fact that I didn't know what I wanted to do. Even the fact that I went to school was like, why? Because it was like what the next step is, what you do. I didn't have any other idea or plan. And so ultimately the binging got so much worse in college to the point where, I would gain a lot of weight like very, very quickly. And then I would try to compensate for that by restricting. And so it was this horrible, vicious cycle that I wouldn't wish upon anybody, but I know there's people out there who understand it. But I didn't know at that point to like the binge eating, disorder like that. At least I wasn't aware of it. I was aware of, anorexia and bulimia, and that it was like the two different, it was like you this or that. And I was like, I don't fit into those categories. Like as far, I don't fit all the criteria. I would look it up. I would like research it. I'm like, something's so wrong with me. Like, I don't feel right. I know something's not right. Because again, what had become was, it became my life. It like literally impeded on me, on my relationships, my school, like everything. It became my world, trying to figure that out. And then it was just this vicious cycle. So ultimately that was kind of, sadly, I feel like that was what, for me, when I look back on college, that's what it was all about. Like it was that for me, it was about my eating disorder. And then when I actually became a flight attendant right out of school, right out of college. And I felt like that was my, like that's what I was searching for. That was the thing that would fix me, quote unquote, because I was really excited about it. I finally found something that I was like, oh, I really want to do this. It's, but ultimately what I realized, I mean, when I started getting it, and it's a lifestyle in and of it, in and of itself, like flying and being very, very mobile, not super grounded, and like having really, groups of friends. Like I had friends all over the place. So looking back on it, it definitely wasn't necessarily the most healthy situation for me at that point. Definitely not for what I was struggling with my eating disorder. And I basically the culmination of it all was I did go to in-person treatment, because it came to a point where basically I was like calling my mom, which is where I connect with you. And I feel like she was the one person that I was telling everything to, like throughout this whole time. Like I would call her and cry after a binge or after a night, right, where I just felt like, I don't know what to do. Why does this keep happening? Why do I keep doing this? Like, it was just so much shame, so much guilt. And it was like, it was my fault. Like, why do I keep doing this? What is wrong with me? And so I remember calling her at one, and basically, and I can't imagine, I mean, that's why hearing you, it's nice to hear your perspective and refreshing, because I can't imagine what she was going through on her end of it all. And so she, basically we got set up into where I went to an in-person treatment. And it was interesting because, like I said, I think at that point, even binge eating disorder, they weren't talking about it. They weren't, as far as I knew, literally, I just didn't feel like I fit there. I did feel like I needed to like get out of my life and to like take a step back. So I struggled with that. I struggled with it, but I do feel like I got some tools from it, and ultimately, and this is getting long, but basically after I went there, I mean, it was not it was not a magic thing at all by any means. I wasn't magically healed, fixed, but I feel like as the time went on, what happened for me was that what was happening was that, again, that became my world, the food, the eating, my body, that fixation. And what I know I can see now is that it was just that distraction. And it was the thing that I felt like I was able to control in my life. But when I met my now husband, and I started my world started getting bigger in other ways. And that's for me when it started, the eating disorder and the eating issues got smaller. So it was like, I guess that's the best way I can describe it.
It's a really great way to describe it, because that's pretty much what my life was too, as I went away to college, and that's where my control piece started. And that's what I say, I got a little bit of help. I didn't go inpatient at all, but I got some help from therapists and some friends. And as my world started to expand, and I got a job in nursing, and I lived on my own, and I had more confidence, and I felt better about myself. Yeah. And I like the way you said that your world got larger. Mm-hmm. And so you didn't have all that time to just fixate on, you and all your mistakes and all that, insecurity and things like that. So I can totally relate to that. And it does make sense. And again, I want people to hear that it is okay to reach out to somebody for help, and even if it's your mother or your father or your friend or whatever, it's really important to do that. And because it just popped in my head, like people see you, people see us, and sometimes they don't know what to say, and they feel like there's something wrong, but they don't know how to help. Yeah. And sometimes they're just waiting for you to say something, So good that you had that relationship with your mom, that you felt like you could, share that, with her. So,
yeah. And when I think about it now too, I think so much of almost for me, maybe why it lasted so long. I mean, there's so many, what ifs, but I just felt like I was so confused. Again, like there was nobody else talking about this specifically, like what I was going through. I was experiencing, some of those binges where it was like scary. Like I had literally lost my mind, and I wasn't in control of my body. And so it didn't match up to anything I had heard about other, like I said, like other eating disorders. So I guess that's what is helpful for me now, and just in all the ways to hear. And when I now working with moms and talking about all the things, like the more honest we are about what we've been through, then there's somebody, like you said, there's somebody who's going to relate. And that the binging, I just feel like is so like, I'm like, it was so shameful, but I know that it's more common than I realized. I know I really thought I was the only one. I think that's the thing. I really did. Yeah. So now I know different.
Yeah. Well, and if you're listening and you wonder about different types of eating disorders, a couple of weeks ago was Eating Disorder Awareness Week. And so I did a quick recording on just kind of things to look for in the different types of eating disorders. So you can go back and check that episode out if you're, again, just interested, because it used to be Karen Carpenter and anorexia, and that was about it. But there's so many other things that have developed, and even like night eating, which has sometimes considered an eating disorder because people wake up in the middle of the night for whatever reason and they eat, and sometimes it's uncontrollable and stuff like that. So there's all kinds of different ones. Yeah. And again, I'm so glad that you were brave enough to share your story. And again, like you mentioned, you have gone on and you're helping moms, and you created this business of your own called the Simply Big Life. And so I'd love for you to talk about, because I think that's we've talked about it. It's a great business name, but it also seems like it's, kind of opposite.
Right.
It's simple, but it's big. So like, what does that mean to you, and why? And, how did you kind of come up with that?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love this question, because on my podcast, that's what I ask at the end. Like, what does that mean to you? And of course, to me, it's really, and when I put it together with my story as well, I always wanted a big life, like adventure, and just really designing, really anything's possible. That's what I truly believe and always have. But I think that's where I was like putting a cap on myself, and almost like, with those distractions, with all the different things, with the eating and all, throughout the years, it was like I was kind of almost scared of that big. Like, what does that actually look like? So basically, after I I got married, I had my kids, I was like, okay, the big, right? Like getting to know who I am and what I truly want, and this abundance, that it is really anything is possible that I want. I can have everything. I really believe that. And the moms out there listening, the women, we can have it all. It's just, and the simple part of it is that clarity. It's clearing the clutter of our minds, our lives, our time, our energy, anything that's not serving us or that's holding us back from that bigness. And it's going to be, the big is going to be different for everybody. So it's, how do you define what's a big life? So one day, honestly, I really do feel like the name was from God. First of all, I feel like it just hit me one day, and I didn't really know what it meant. I mean, but I knew that I had been designing, like what I was doing was already trying to live my Simply Big life ever since I became a mom. So I slowly was like, okay. And then the name came, and I was like, this is perfect, because I love talking about like you said, it seems like opposites, but to me, it's balance. It's, again, keeping it simple, keeping it focused and clear on what truly matters to you, on your core values. And then that's what's going to allow you to create the big, whatever that is for you.
Mm-hmm. It's great. It's awesome. I love it. And I loved being on your podcast too. And I know you asked me that question. So you'll have to, depending on whose comes out first or whatever, we'll have to put the links in the show notes for you, sure. For that kind of thing. But, and as a result of you starting that business, then you went on to create a planner. Mm-hmm. So to kind of keep it all organized and keep it together. So how did that happen, or why'd you decide to do that?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So again, so I think this is part of my story too, is, and where I am today with helping moms designing the rhythms, was because when I first became a mom, it's really when I started, it all coincided that's when I was like, I really need to find out who I am, because I don't want to be I don't want to set this example for my kids of just kind of going through the motions and kind of like, and living life distracted, really. It was so much more motivation for me once they came into the world. And I was like, okay, this is it. This is my life. Like, it's happening right now. I think a big part of in my 20s, right? You feel like you have so much time. And really, right, we don't know how much time we have. So I think it was a lot of that mindset. And then when I had my kids, I was like, oh no, this is it. This is my life. It's happening now. So it's time to start getting intentional about designing it. So in that whole process, I realized that being a mom was what I always wanted. Being a mom and a wife and having a family and a home was what I always wanted. And I also wanted to connect with other women. I wanted to have something of my own. I wanted to inspire and connect in some way. At that point, I didn't know what it was, and it was that. And so I worked through all of that at the beginning of my motherhood of like, is that okay to want more? I mean, that whole thing, that's a whole other conversation. But then I struggled with, what does that look like? Like having both, finding the rhythm and the integration and the balance with being the best mom and wife I can be. And then also and then slowly I realized it was becoming a businesswoman and having my own business. So I started with the planner because it just felt like the most natural thing, because I loved planners. First of all, I got all the different ones. I would buy all the new ones, and I just couldn't find the right fit for me. I couldn't find the one that I felt like really helped me to organize my life in a way that I was like, this makes sense in my brain. Like, this is how, my personality and all the things. So I just started creating it. I just started sketching it out in a book. I got a sketchbook from Target. I'll actually never forget that first day. And I couldn't stop. Like, it was just flowing out of me. So I created the first version 3 years ago. And then now that was a Simply Big Life planner. And then the next one, and this version is the Peace and Productivity Planner, because it's just crazy to think about how our businesses, and how that goes, how they evolve. And the more clarity you get on who you are along the journey, the more clear it becomes who you can help, who you can serve. And for me, it was like, who is this planner for? And so really it's for the moms like me who want to be the best mom, the best wife, and really integrate and flow with that, pursue their passion, a business, whatever that is for them, pursue something else that really fills their soul. So that's what the planner is today, to really, bring that all together for moms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it because, again, everything we talk about, I'm like, okay, yes, that's good. That's great. Because, I've been involved with Shackley for over 21 years. And Roger Barnett, who bought the company 13, 14 years ago, I remember one of the conventions he talked about, and he actually wrote a song about it, called The Land of And. And we talked about that at a conference, and it was kind of like our theme for the year, because it was exactly what you're saying, that so many times in life, and if we look at it from women and moms, we can be a mom or we can be a businesswoman.
Right.
Or we can stay at home with our kids, or we got to go to work.
Yep.
Or we can be single or be married. Or, it's just like that.
Right.
But it's always that either or.
Yeah.
But when you have, we like to say in Shackley, when you have your own business, and again, you're an entrepreneur, you can have it all. You can live in the land of and. You can, and that's what I've fallen in love with my business, is that I can be a mom and I can be a businesswoman, and I can be a mom 80% of the time and a businesswoman 20% of the time, or I can flip-flop that, or, it's just all that and, because we talk about or so much.
Yeah.
And it is. And as we talked about on one of our walks, just that idea that so many of us, again, being a mom is an awesome thing. Not everybody chooses to, but those that choose it is a wonderful privilege to be a mother and to be gifted with these wonderful children. And we give our lives to that. We give our energy to that, and we pour our souls into that. And a lot of times we lose a part of ourselves in the meantime. And what I find, I'm older than you, and I'm at a different stage in my life where the kids are leaving, and a lot of my friends, same thing. The kids leave home, and when they leave, like a piece of you goes with them.
Yes.
You're left like, okay, now what am I supposed to do?
Yep.
The fact that you can have, that's what we talked about. Like you can have something, you can start it when you have kids at home. You can start it when the kids leave. You can start it anytime, but you can have that.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And the fact that just having that time to, like, it's not the same for everybody, but just figuring out, having that clarity, like, what is it that lights you up?
Yes.
Like, that's what you did. You wanted to, this started to flow from you, and you wanted to serve others and all of that. And again, living in that land of Anna, completely get it. And I love it.
Yeah.
And I love that we can live in that land, and we can share that opportunity, with others, and show other women that it is possible.
Absolutely. I love that. The land of and. I feel, and so many times, right, we say the or we say the but I'm this or that. And those limiting beliefs, right, come in. I think that's where I'm at really right now with my own mindset and, coaching the women that I do, and just encouraging them of this idea of, because I'm all about seasons as well, right? Like it's knowing what season you're in, because it's real when you're in the thick of it. I think the mom with the young kids right now listening, or even, even with all the pandemic stuff going on, we've got the seasons of motherhood that are absolutely more challenging than others, and they require more of your energy. I think that's the biggest thing for me, is that I never thought it wasn't possible. I just knew that in different seasons, it's going to look different. Like you were saying, like in different, you're going to be able to give a different amount of energy to your business when you have little kids. And then you're going to be able to give a little bit more, if that's what you want, when they go to school, right? Like it's just this evolution. But I think it's really, really important, like you said, that we just keep that mindset of that it is possible, and everything is figuring out how to make it work for us. And I'm big on redefining things. Like I want to help women be more productive, but not in the way you would think. Productivity, what does that mean? It doesn't mean doing all the things, doing more, cramming it all in so that you're exhausted at the end of the day. No, to me, it means setting clear intentions, getting very clear on what you want, who you are, what you want, and what you want to accomplish that day, and then following through and accomplishing it. Then you are productive. And it could be one thing. It could be literally just hanging out with your husband, if that's what you set out to do, right? So I just think there's so much room.
Yeah. Well, and there's a few things there. I mean, I think it's also what I've learned in life is the way that you do one thing is the way that you do everything.
Yeah.
So sometimes it can be a really small thing, but when someone told me about that, and I really thought about it, and I continue to think about it, it's like, wow, it's very true. It can be the way you spend time with your husband, but what I love, again, what you said too, is that it's that possibilities, and it's is getting away from those limiting beliefs. Because there was another time having a conversation with Roger Barnett, the owner of Shackley, and my girlfriend. I have 4 kids. She has 5 kids. And, we were in the thick of it. With the kids. And we're like, you know what? We have these distractions. They're called children.
Yes.
And he stopped us and said, no, they're not distractions. Those are possibilities. Each one of those is an opportunity or a possibility to meet someone, to meet other people. Like, my son's friends, meet their moms, and maybe how can you serve them? How can you help them? Or I go to, we go to church, or we go to yoga, or we, have a walking group or whatever. Those are all, instead of them being distractions and limit us from where we what we can do.
Yeah.
He said, look at it as those are possibilities of people that you
Yeah.
can help, people that you can serve. And that again gets rid of that limiting the belief, like, well, I'm just too busy. I just have
Right.
too much going on. How could I have my own business,
Yeah.
or who would buy my stuff, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just a great space to live in.
Absolutely.
Because how many times, and again, talked about this on another podcast in regards to my ballroom dance, like how many times do we play this red light story in our head? Like that stops us. Like I could never do that.
Yeah.
I could never do that. And though we just keep saying that to ourselves and we
Yes.
never do it, right? Because that's the
story we're telling ourselves.
Right.
Absolutely. No, I think it's the first. So I'm actually in the process of creating a course, which is super exciting. And the first module is that mindset and that growth mindset, right? Really understanding what are the stories we're telling ourselves and what is actually true. Because there are, honestly, because we're doing it, there are examples of women doing it and doing it well, being a mom, being a business owner. And like I said, it's going to look different for everybody, but it is possible. So I think that's where community comes in, of connecting with like-minded women and learning how other people are doing it. And that's a big piece of my mission right now in this season of my business, is to help women create those rhythms for self-care, to just fill that bucket, for their home and their family to fill those buckets, right? And then then you are in that rhythm and you're freed up. You all of a sudden have this clarity in this space to say, oh, I'm getting all these ideas. Like, where are these ideas coming from? Because your brain's not so cluttered. You're literally taking care of everything and everyone in a flow and a rhythm. And then you're freed up to dream and really go after your passion. So that's what I'm so fired up about right now.
And it's so good. And it's so good that you said that today, because I woke up, it couldn't be more appropriate. I woke up in the middle of the night, had to go to the, bathroom. And then the dogs, my two little dogs who sleep with me, one of them's old. He always wants to get up in the middle of the night. So downstairs we come, he gets his water, they go outside, they do their stuff and go back to bed. And of course they fall asleep, and I could not get to sleep. And it's just what you said. I thought about it. I'm like, all of these things were in my head. And I was thinking about, because I have an appointment with my coach tomorrow. And every time it comes up to my next coaching, I'm like, I have to fill out a form. What did I do from last week? And I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't done this. And I haven't done this. And why don't I schedule that? And why don't I schedule my, I'm like, all of these things. And then it was about then I tried to do my grateful prayers and stuff. And then I started thinking about something else. And it just made me think about, when you said that, when we have things, again, when we have a rhythm or a schedule or a whatever, it does. I love that, because it doesn't, then your mind can rest, if you will.
Yes.
And then it can free up to think about, something
That's
else.
That's it. It's the mental load, the running to-do list. And it does happen. It happens to most women, right? When your head finally hits the pillow and you're actually able to stop. You pause, you stop, because all day long, if we look at it, if we're not being intentional, it's way too easy to just run from thing to thing, and if it's intentional, right, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's right. That awareness of, is our brain overfull? And there's so many things that we can do, that again, it is creating those rhythms, but even in that moment of all the brain dumps, all the things, but it really does start with the awareness of oh, whoa, why? So there's a reason my brain's getting overfull.
And is that one of the things that you talk about and teach, is that brain dump? Because I almost got up and got a notebook and started to write, because I was like, I don't want to forget. Oh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
100,000%. That's probably my number one, not probably, that is my number one tip, is to have a place where you capture all of those thoughts. One brain dump. I actually have a brain dump for my work and a brain dump for my home. But you find one place, if it's a journal, if it's your notes app, right? And I usually keep a thing by my bed, or sometimes I'll have a notepad while I'm making dinner, because, and noticing when those those rush of thoughts come. Sometimes for me, it's in the shower when I'm, not really able to do anything else except think. That's where it starts. It's capturing, getting them out of our brain because giving them a place to live outside of our head, because that's when I think we hold on. I know from the science, we hold on to all these different things so that we don't forget, right? And we don't think we will, but but they stay even like in the back of our brain and somewhere, we hold on to all these things, they add up, and eventually that leads to us that overwhelm feeling. So knowing and I think I have a whole process in the course is literally for your home, for your work, for your self-care, and then your planning. It's brain dumping all the things, the recurring things you do, and then creating rhythms with those, because that's really where it starts. But in that moment where you're feeling that overwhelm, start with that brain dump, and then step away from it. Like, don't try to deal with anything then. Just start with the brain dump.
Yeah, I thought about getting up and go, like, screw it. I'm just going to get up and start my day. But I was able to I think after about an hour and a half, I did get about an hour extra sleep. So
yeah, that's good. That's so normal.
Oh yeah. It's happens.
It's not fun.
It's not fun at all. And, I think that what, this whole pandemic has taught, all of us so many things. And that's certainly one of them, that I have found myself challenged with my sleep more this last year.
Yeah.
And it's partly because of that worry, partly of that things got just thrown out of whack. Right. And then we're out of sorts, and like, what's going on? And like trying to process that in my head, I found many nights, either I couldn't get to sleep or I woke up like this and were challenged. So that's a good, good. And, people can connect with you about that if they want to learn more too. And again, we just learned, again, as I said at the beginning, I just love the fact that somebody told me that we should connect. And, and, we were brave enough to reach out and say, come on, let's meet. Again, we had never met. I didn't even know I kind of knew what you look like, on Facebook and your website, but we were brave enough to connect and I feel like I have, a new friend now. Absolutely. And, with eating disorders, with shame, with all of that stuff, we tend to, and pandemics and things like that, we are either forced to be separated or we choose to be separated. And I don't know, I just feel like I want to give light to that. And we don't have to necessarily talk a lot about it, but just the importance of just making those connections, because again, I know that as I've lived in that place of shame or insecurity and things like that, and not dreaming. And again, I'm doing with my hands, you can't even, nobody can see it, but like living in this small space, you just close yourself off to the possibilities. And it's scary. I don't even know if I would have done that like 10 years ago, saying, I'll just go meet her in the park. I'm like, who is this lady? Right. But totally. I'm so glad that we did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because then the world opens up,
Yes. 100%. And it's such an interesting topic for me right now. I feel like, because the pandemic really did show me that I feel like I am an introvert. And also I don't necessarily want to label myself, but I really enjoyed the time alone. And I do need a lot of alone time to recharge. And really, from what I understand of that, right, it's just how you get refueled, whether you're around a big group of people or, by yourself. So for me, that is what it is. I need a lot of alone time, and it's not always very natural to reach out and connect. But once I do, I do get energy then, right? So it's a weird, it's both, and it's like, even just connecting with you, and it's like taking that step, even though, it's the unknown. And I think that's probably the biggest thing of we can't see, maybe nothing would have come of our taking a walk, but look what did. I think that's the thing where we can get in our heads about all the what ifs and the things that could go wrong. But if we're just willing to take that first step, and for me, with creating the planner or starting the business, for the woman out there who's feeling lonely and, wanting to, make friends or connect. I think it's just really starts with that first scary step, and then it will show itself, what the next step is.
Right. Well, because I've done this before. I've met with other people,
right.
and I only had one walk with them, because, and I think it's what came up for me when you were talking is being clear about our boundaries. And, boundaries, as I've learned, are really how we want others to treat us, right?
Yeah.
But it's also just being clear on our own boundaries. Right. That again, if that doesn't feel right, if the energy doesn't feel right, then you have the ability to say, oh, okay. I got to go home, or I don't want to talk to you anymore, or whatever. Absolutely. You have the ability. And again, I just know that sometimes my husband, I don't know if he probably won't listen to this episode, so I can say it. But anyway, he can hear it if he wants. But sometimes he doesn't put himself out there because he's like, he thinks about that. Well, I don't know. Like
overthinking.
Overthinking. And it's like, well, again, I'm the but what could come from that? Well, but I don't think they'd be interested. And I don't think I'm like, but what if they would be? It's nice to, I think I have a little pin over here. And again, nobody can see this, but it says, what if,
if? I love it. I love it. We're so on the same page with that.
I know.
And I think that idea really, if we're not for everybody and everybody's not for us. And I think whether in business, in life, I think sometimes just accepting that and really that gives you that freedom. I think I'm definitely having to learn that the more I put myself out there in business specifically, you're not going to be for everybody. And that's a good thing. Because we're not meant to be best friends with everybody in life either, right? We're going to find our people when you put yourself out there. And I think just like you said, sometimes you don't do another walk, sometimes you do, and it's okay.
And it's okay. But again, knowing that, because a friend of mine said too, as I was talking about my ballroom dance, and he didn't know that I did that. And I showed him the pictures and we had a nice conversation. And he said, darling, when you open up, the world opens up to you. And I think that's a really wonderful way to wrap this time up, is to say, again, when you open yourself up, and that's about being vulnerable, learning how to be intentional, learning all the things. But when you open yourself up and take that risk and things like that and say, what if the world is open? For you. And that's a pretty exciting thing. And again, that leads to that place of, because I know how I answered that question about, what a simply big life, for me, it talks, it's about dreaming and about those possibilities and what can happen when we go there. And,
I love it.
My time is limited today, so I'd love to keep talking to you.
Oh my gosh,
we could keep going on, but I do want to wrap it up. I have to wrap it up.
Absolutely.
And love that you were able to share everything today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Again, things that I did ask you, if there are any courses, books, or things that you really found along the way that were helpful for you. And then let's make sure that people know how to get a hold of you too, if they want to connect with you, work with you, just have more of you like I do.
Oh, thank you so much. This was awesome. And yes, absolutely. So for the resources, I'm a big book nerd. You can see you can my color coded books back there. So I would say and it was hard. It's hard to really pick. I also love courses. And that's why I'm creating one, because I feel like it's kind of the best new way for moms working from home to really get that information, that and podcasts. So I would definitely say Essentialism by Greg McKeown is one of the books I read when I first started my business, and just that idea of really clearing out what's not important and focusing on what is essential. And then the Atomic Habits. That's the other one that really stands out that I keep on my bookshelf and I always reference, one of those, all the dog ears, all the highlighter, all the things.
I got it over there. It over there on my shelf. Yeah.
Because it all comes back to habits and to what we do every day, good or bad, that make up our life. So that's pretty important. The other thing, just a fun resource, is that I just finished, and it's Jamie Baker I think it's called the Mama Form. So it's literally she was a stylist, and it's an interesting for me working from home. And as you can see, I have a hard time actually getting out of my yoga pants, which is okay every now and then. But this course, I heard her on a podcast, and it's just, I love how she really equates like getting dressed, like how you put yourself out there. It's kind of what like we're talking about. Like it's that extra layer of confidence when you feel like you love what you're wearing and you feel good about, how you're presenting. We don't have to be perfect, obviously, but it's literally just that confidence of like having what you're wearing represent who you are in a way. So anyway, I took the course, and because she's awesome. So I would definitely go. And it's just kind of, it's more so like, what are your basic pieces of that, like help you to, feel good. And it helps us that decision fatigue in the morning when you don't have 1,000,001 things in your closet and you're trying to dig through. So yeah,
That's
the mama
cool.
form. I know.
Yeah, I do look think into that. Cool.
Yeah. I want her on the podcast. I'm just going to put that out there on my podcast. So I'm going to put that out in the universe. So then for me, I'm actually, okay. So we did talk about this, and I'm not sure exactly when this is going to air, but I am on the cusp of basically a rebrand, and it's not like too far from, it's what I've been saying. But it's a new website and the peace and productivity course. So whenever you're listening, definitely it's a Simply Big Life right now on Instagram. And I would say that's probably maybe the best place to find me. And the website is a Simply Big Life right now, but so it's shortly going to be changing. But you can always, you'll always be able to find me through those links, and then you can update them, I'm sure, in the show notes when it's time. But yeah, so email me. Like I said, I want to connect with anybody who wants to, start creating those rhythms in that space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah.
Awesome.
I learned a lot. I've met a couple of stylists along the way of life, and I love that. I'm intrigued by that because I've learned about different colors to wear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you want certain things to happen, if you want people to say yes to you, or, I had a lot of gray in my closet, and she's like, that's kind of like, so like, I mean, it is dull, even though I have some pretty grays and I look good in gray, but it's kind of like, so like neutral.
Totally.
And, and I was supposed to wear, I don't know what, an energy gal that I talked to one time said I should wear blue on Thursday. And so today's Thursday and I'm wearing blue. So
that's cool. I love all that stuff. I feel like it is because it's ultimately it's about how you feel, right? Like it's just how you feel. And then that, like you said, the energy you're putting out. Yeah. So that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. So cool. I'll finish it up here, because again, we could talk forever, but I'm so thankful. Again, you're brave to share your story. And I know that people loved hearing from you today, as I did. And again, just for the listeners, again, know that your story does matter. There is a message in the mess that you have. We don't need to be ashamed of our past. And I just love to tell women and anybody listening that really your past doesn't dictate who you are, who you can be. So discover the possibilities, live in the land of and again, reach out and be brave to share your story, or just, say hello to somebody and make that connection, because you never know where your life may lead. So thank you, Sarah. Thank you, listeners. And we'll catch you next time on the podcast. Thanks for listening. If you like this podcast, head over to iTunes and leave me a 5-star review. Share it with others, and make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. I've got a tribe over on Facebook, so head over there and search for Juggling the Chaos of Recovery Podcast Tribe. And do you know somebody who has a story to share, a story of recovery and hope? Please let me know, as I'd love to feature them as a guest on one of these next upcoming podcasts. And perhaps you're looking for a community of like-minded, collaborative, and supportive people who cheer each other on as we strive to improve our lives. If that sounds like something you've been looking for, schedule some time with me. You'll find the links in the show notes. Let's talk, and let me help you find your way. And I'm here to tell you that you're worth it.